So many people have asked me questions regarding this. So when I translate this to English, this person is saying, do you need permission from the bus operator or the bus driver beforehand when you're filming a front view video, いわゆる前面展望? Now, many people online, they would say yes without really questioning or critically thinking on why is the answer yes in the first place. But from my own experiences, I'm just gonna tell you that it is not a definite yes. It's actually a gray area and it's way more nuanced than that. So the reason why I made this video is because I'm really tired of people trying to push and spread the narrative that oh, whenever you want to film front view video, you have to seek permission. Now this is the interior of a Japanese bus. I know that some bus models don't have the front seats, but for the older models, yes, most of them have both front seats. So this one is the frontmost seat on the right. And only if you're sitting on this seat and you're filming through the gap between the driver's cabin and where you're sitting from, there is actually a small gap in some bus models. Only when you're filming through this gap do you need permission from the driver all the time. Now for this seat, you don't necessarily always have to obtain permission from the driver when you want to film a front view of the bus ride. And before you guys hate on me, let me explain why. Now, based on your own camera settings, if your view looks something like this, okay, by the way, this is my video, then you don't have to seek permission. Because, the mirror is here and I'm not exposing the driver's face in any way. Now, this is from another YouTuber. You only have to seek permission in this case if your camera angle is the wide angle or fishbowl lens, so that you can get a wider view. Like you can see, the mirror here is exposed, and the uploader also censored this part over here because you're exposing the dashboard, or there is a risk of exposing either the driver's face or their name tag. So the main takeaway is that I really want people to understand that whether you need permission or not depends on your camera settings, and you always have to ask yourself what permission are you seeking for in the first place? Because at the end of the day, it's just a harmless front view video that doesn't really expose anyone's face. You just want to enjoy the scenery in front. 自分の経験により689回全面展望が撮影許可得なくても撮影ができます。6回撮影禁止されちゃった。Now, if I've done front views for 689 times successfully, even without having to ask the driver's permission, I don't see why people, try to make a big deal, kick a whole fuss about it, when it's not even a serious issue in the first place. Because whilst there are some drivers in Japan that they are very sensitive, 全面展望が嫌とか, they're just rather sensitive. They want to protect the passengers' identity as well as their own identity. They're not comfortable with people filming, and that's perfectly fine with me. When I was stopped by them for filming for whatever reason, like usually they don't disclose, they just say, hey, please stop filming. I usually comply. No, I always comply. Sorry for my words. So like when they tell me to stop filming for whatever reason, like I would just stop. But most bus drivers in Japan are quite friendly, like those in Tokyo's 23 wards or like Nishi Tokyo, like West Tokyo. I'm talking about places like Hachioji, Tachikawa, Mitaka, and all those that fall under Tokyo as well. While other prefectures like Chiba or Ibaraki, they might be stricter when it comes to filming because these bus drivers, they're not really used to seeing bus enthusiasts and they might like question your intent of, hey, why are you filming this? And they might stop you from filming and stuff. But for the record, most bus drivers in Japan, they are very friendly. They understand that like even without us saying, hey, we want to film or anything, they understand that we're just bus enthusiasts. We don't mean any harm. We just want to enjoy the front view and, you know, film the bus ride, keep it as a memory so that we have like something to look back on. Now, of course, you do not take their kindness for granted. Usually if you just, you know, behave yourself, sit still, don't cause any trouble, don't make any noise, and when passengers are like entering and exiting the bus through the front door, which is where you're filming from, as long as you like show some form of effort to not capture these passengers, their faces or anything, like you put your camera away or you try to cover your camera during the boarding and alighting, then I think it's okay. And most of them are like pretty understanding that, you know, we're trying to respect the passengers around us as well as like the driver. We're not trying to cause trouble or anything. Like I filmed front view like nearly 700 times, and I have only 6 failed attempts because those people, they stopped me for whatever reason. And that tells you a lot. Most bus drivers in Japan, they are very chill and they just let you, you know, do your thing. They don't really question you most of the time as long as you're not like being disruptive to people, you're not being disruptive to operations and stuff like that. So only when you're sitting on the frontmost row of seats, like the right seat, only when you're filming from the right seat do you need permission from the bus driver, because it's like the bus driver will be captured in that kind of video. But on the left side, depending on your camera settings, you don't always have to ask for permission. Like, it's definitely a good practice to ask for permission, like as a form of politeness, but typically you don't have to do it because most of the YouTubers I've watched, like they don't even cut out the sections from when they board the bus and when they get seated, like in the frontmost row of seats, the left one, and from that point on until the bus departs. I have never like heard of them seeking permission from either the operator or the driver. They just film. Like that's all. It's a simple thing. Like more often than not, most bus enthusiasts don't even really seek permission before like filming this kind of front view. It's just some people who are more like cautious, they don't want to get cancelled or anything, they would seek permission. Again, it's a good practice, but it is not a must. But it's just that when you don't seek permission, you run the risk of, you know, them stopping you midway during your recording session, telling you that, 車内撮影はダメですよ. Or like, I forgot what he said, but 白写はダメですよ. Like, some things along these lines. So to put it simply, if you don't seek permission, it's not a bad thing. It's just that you run the risk of them, stopping you midway during your recording session. Like, it's not going to change the outcome whether you seek permission or not. Now, the whole root cause of why is this even a thing in the first place is because East Asia has stricter privacy laws as compared to the rest of the world. So in Japanese, it's called shozoken. So that means that you're technically not allowed to put anyone's face or name, like their identity, online without their prior consent. So yeah, that explains why some people are rather like sensitive or touchy when it comes to this. But I just want to say, if no one appears in your video and all the passerbys in your video are like, their faces are not clearly shown or anything, it's not a big problem. And I don't see why people have to like make such a big deal out of this. Because logically, if there are no faces to be censored, no names to be censored, and no humans appear in your video, why is there a need to ask for permission? In the first place, there's literally nothing to censor. So when I said most of East Asia, I'm typically referring to Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. Now, in both South Korea and Japan, you've seen people who they're just more like carefree. They don't really go around censoring things. They don't really go around asking permission for like, hey, can I film this? Can I film this? Or what? It depends on people. And for Japan, they just tend to be more sensitive when it comes to like privacy related issues. That's why they're concerned if you capture the people's faces in your video. And most of the time, you get stopped by either train or bus drivers because they're afraid that when after recording the video, you're not gonna censor people's faces. Like, they're just worried about that. So they don't tell you about it, but they just tell you to stop filming. And like, you have no choice but to comply at that point. And because Japan is like quite concerned when it comes to like privacy related issues, like when you're filming train front views or bus front views, that's why sometimes the drivers or even the netizens, like the netizens, they can get like really worked up when you don't seek for permission. Which leads to comments like this that sometimes when you think about it, it really doesn't make any sense. Now, I don't blame people for making comments like this because it's like from a young age, they are taught, like as a society, to just follow, don't question anything, just follow the textbook, just follow the standard procedure and you'll be fine. It's like from young, this is what their education system and this is basically what they're taught from young. So when they become adults, their mindset doesn't really change or anything. They don't really question why you're like asking for permission. It's because society teaches them to respect privacy at all costs. That's why they have tendencies to, be very worked up and cautious when it comes to like privacy related issues such as like the face censoring. But sometimes you just question a little bit, like, why do most of these people like seem to lack critical thinking? They're not able to properly reason out why satsui kinshi ikoru dame, like these sorts of things. They only give a certain answer because like society has like molded them into giving these like standard answers without really questioning like the whole intent or everything behind it, like the whole logic of it. And okay, in this context, it's a bit different. Like this comment was posted, like there's nothing wrong with this comment. It is a polite comment. It is posted like on the comment section of a video, and that video is a front view of a double-decker bus from the upper deck. And this is where it starts to get like a little funny, in the sense that when you're filming on a double-decker bus, isn't it a little bit counterintuitive if you seek permission from the bus driver from the lower deck in order to film from the upper deck? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, in the upper deck, you're not like exposing anyone's faces. All you get is the scenery in front, like from the front window. There's nobody to stop you. You're not like intruding anyone's personal space. You're just filming whatever's in front of you. And if it really was such a bad thing, the bus companies, they wouldn't even like put windows there in the first place. They would just like shut off the windows. Now, every bus has to be manufactured with a window, of course, but like, if they really don't want anyone filming, they would shut off every single window, like with curtains that you cannot pull up or whatever, But I really urge people to exercise some of their critical thinking in these kinds of situations. Like, it's just really funny if you seek permission from the lower deck to film from the upper deck. And on the upper deck, you're not exposing any like passengers' faces. You're not exposing the driver's face because the driver is on the lower deck. All you're doing is filming the scenery in front. And then somebody just asks you, hey, bus driver, can I seek permission for filming from the upper deck? It's just so counterintuitive, but these people, they have been brought up to like, not question why things are the way it is and why the privacy laws are even there in the first place. So yeah, which leads to comments like this. And then another thing I want to address is when they say JR Bus San, they are referring to like the bus operator. Like the person is asking, do you need to like email them for permission? And the answer is no. See, even for like bus operators like Kanto Tetsudo Bus, like Kantetsu Bus, I've tried finding before because I have had bad experiences with one of their drivers. They stopped me from filming from the outside when it's clearly a public place. I just cannot with that. But anyways, even on the websites, they don't really say anything about like needing a permit for any photography or videography, be it from inside or outside the bus. They would usually like, push and nudge the responsibility to like the bus drivers in charge, And so far, I've only came across like, Cebu Railway and Tokyo BRT, which is run by Keisei Bus. They just put up advisories on their website regarding photography. They say it's allowed, but as long as you comply with the rules, you do not cause any trouble for people around you, it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. And this is kind of the reason why some bus drivers, regardless of whether you seek permission or not, some bus drivers, they allow you to film with or without permission, while some drivers, they just don't allow you to film because they're concerned about privacy or, whatever reason, even if you tell them, hey, you're gonna censor people's faces and stuff. And the reason why the responsibility is like being pushed to the drivers is because the operators don't really want to comment on this. Because if they were ever to put out stuff like, 車内撮影禁止 zen kinshi, like if they were to like outright ban everyone from filming either inside the bus or front view, it doesn't really look good on them from like I don't know how to say this, but from a tourism standpoint, it's like, it just looks bad on you. It just gives you the impression that like, oh, it's a really uptight place. You cannot even take any form of photography. You cannot conduct any form of like photography, videography, and stuff like that. So that's why they would prefer to let the bus drivers themselves, to be the judge of whether to allow said passenger to film or not give them permission to film. Cause like, let's say, if JR Trains, which is like the most famous or infamous bus and train operator train operator out there, if they were to like suddenly announce that, hey, Satsui Kinshi or whatever rules, okay, like Satsui Kinshi only really applies to like sensitive places, like the control center room or stuff like that. But if you're in a public place, there is no such thing as privacy, to be honest, and like it just won't look good on you if you, as a bus or train operator, go around telling people that, hey, this is banned or that is banned. Like, it just doesn't give a good impression on tourists or like enthusiasts. They would start like, disliking you for whatever reason. I mean, JR Trains is kind of strict when it comes to like filming front views, I don't know why they're like that, but yeah. But that's another story. But again, what really got me is the fact that like people really don't have critical thinking, like to the point where you have to ask for permission on the lower deck to film from the upper deck, even though there's like literally nothing stopping you from filming front view. Like, just exercise your own discretion. And whilst privacy, is a concern in places like Japan, I don't think society should become so uptight to the point whereby like, oh, you need permission for like everything. Okay, don't take that out of context, but it's like when it comes to like enjoying buses and trains, you really don't need like permission all the time. It just depends on the context. Like if you're on this seat, you definitely need permission, but if you're on this seat, then it ultimately depends on like your camera settings, whether you'll be exposing people's faces or not. So whether you want to like ask for permission or not, it's up to you. It's just that when you don't ask for permission, you just run the risk of them stopping you midway during your recording session. That's all. It's not gonna change anything. And most of the time, they understand that we are bus enthusiasts. We just like buses and we just like enjoying the scenery. We just like keeping record of like the different routes that each operator has, like a whole collection of routes, and how the bus turns left, turns right, goes straight or whatever. So most of the time, as long as you show some form of like effort to like cover your camera or put your camera away when people are walking through the front door, like where you're seated behind, as long as you show some form of effort, the bus captains, the bus drivers, they are usually okay with you. Like, I've done that like almost 700 times and I've only been stopped 6 times. Like, I honestly was expecting to get stopped more, but I was surprised by these results, and honestly it varies according to like city or rural areas. The reason why Satsui Kinshi Ritsu is like higher in like, the rural areas is because like these people, the drivers there, they are not really used to bus fans yet, like bus enthusiasts yet. And they might be like very, very cautious of like, hey, why are you recording the video? Which is like natural. Whereas in the city, people tend to be more chill, like when it comes to like photography. Okay, for buses. For trains, it's a different thing because train front views, the train captain, the train drivers, they are just stricter in the sense that, yeah. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, unlike what the netizens say, to not ask for permission when filming front views of a bus, even when you're not exposing, especially when you're not exposing people's faces. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's just that there are risks if you don't do so, and do you want to take those risks? And I genuinely hope that people won't have to go around asking questions like this again, because it's borderline ridiculous, I say. Because the bottom line is, if you don't cause trouble, people are usually okay with you. And some drivers, they happen to be more sensitive than others, so yeah. So the whole rumor being spread by the netizens that satsue kyoka o enakya, you know that rumor, it's from my own experiences, it is false. And please actually think of why things are a certain way before just saying things like this. When something is allowed or banned, you really have to question, really break down all the details on why it's allowed or banned in the first place. And the fact that everything differs according to context. It's not always allowed or always banned or anything.